Good evening, everyone, and welcome to What's Next with Diana Pierce. Well, tonight we're talking about business, and who do you think starts more businesses? Millennials, Gen Xers? Think about this. Millennials are right at the top of that. They're starting at least 25%, if not more. But boomers, baby boomers, are right on their tail at 24.9%. We're going to talk about what that looks like in the state of Minnesota. And if you're in the 50 plus category and you're thinking about starting a business, now is the time to do that. And we're going to talk about now the name of the group to check out is SCORE. Bill Lyon is the SCORE Assistant District Director. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. We met each other last October at the National Association of Women Business Owners Conference.
Yep.
And we connected then, and I so wanted to have you on my show because of mentoring. So let's talk about SCORE. What's SCORE all about?
SCORE's been around for 54 years. It actually started here in the Twin Cities 54 years ago. It's a national group. This is always pro bono, and it's always mentoring up to and include workshops, primarily for startups, but in Minnesota, 40% of those that we work with are actually ongoing small businesses.
Okay, so when somebody they really need help, you want them to start out with SCORE because it really helps that business person think through all the steps to create a good and viable business. Because a lot of people think that they want to start a business, but then they get stuck.
Yeah, one of the tenets of the way we approach people when they come to us is, one, we're never going to tell you no, you shouldn't do it. If you choose to not follow your dream, then that's your choice. But we're going to help you find choices that are logical, rational, and based on all of our composite business experience, actually makes sense. So.
And what you've seen is a lot of millennials are coming to you. Like, is this state higher in millennials starting business than any other?
We are, based on a Kauffman Foundation research report from last year, Minnesota is one of the top 5 for startups of all states, of all 50. They're actually tied for third. There's a two-way tie for second as well. It's a very good state for startups. And last year for SCORE, we dealt with almost 40% of our working client relationships were in fact millennials.
Wow. So when millennials find you, how are they finding you? Because sometimes, of course, a little, that's not the first thing that comes out of millennials' mouth when they're looking for business help.
Yeah, interestingly, more and more what we're finding is that they're connecting with us because we have partnered well with other like-missioned groups in Minnesota. People like the 1 Million Cups group that is housed at J.J. Hill, the library, or like a Women Venture, or they come to the SBA and other people like that. Secondarily, they're always going to find us on the internet. And we've gone through a fairly major overhaul in the last 6 months trying to get all of our tech communications up to the level of expectation that your typical millennial, your typical Gen X would think is normal.
A little bit. What can people find when they go to the SCORE website?
Well, there's a number of things you can find. First of all, if you want a mentor, there's a pretty easy drop-down box to request a mentor. Kind of a parenthetical, the way we assign mentors is based on where you live. It's based on your zip code, and then secondarily, we will assign an individual whose business experience parallels what you have that you want to do. And that's fairly important because what we're trying to help people with is not make mistakes that many of us have made in our own business careers. That's the way you pay it forward. Secondarily, you have a series of resources that move the gamut from workshops and seminars that are constantly being put on by industry leaders on topics that will be important to you being successful in business, to a resources tool chest that will give you every type of business planning or business analysis tool that you could ever want. And that's fairly important because you need to have tools that are going to help you work through your numbers. This is a numbers type of business that you're going to probably be going into, and you've got to be able to understand what's really important. And that's what we help people do, is what's important. Biggest single stumbling block that I've seen with all the clients I've dealt with and those that I've talked to through others is what we call market feasibility, which is a nice way of saying, if you're going to sell it, is there somebody out there that really wants to buy it?
Right, exactly.
That's fairly important. And I've had some really nice people who said, you know, my mom thinks it's a good idea. To which I've said, if your mom tells you it's a bad idea, then you really know it's a bad idea. You know, or
Right.
all my friends really like it. And that's great, but you've got to have a better fix on, or am I doing something that can find an audience that I want to serve with what I want to do? And if I do this in a way that makes sense, will I be able to make a business out of it that can in fact support me?
You're also reaching out to women veterans. There's a big initiative for SCORE to help these women move their businesses forward.
We actually have a pilot that will start with a symposium on March 21st, hosted out at MnDOT's Training Center in Arden Hills. And it is a way to show women vets what we have in our tool chest, in our seminars and workshops, and we'll front that with a panel of probably 4 women in business owners, all of whom are vets, talking about here's what it took to get to where I am. And there's nothing as good as networking with others who are like you, a woman vet, to be able to do that. So yes, there's a huge emphasis on women generally and women vets specifically within SCORE in Minnesota.
Now, let's talk about those who might be watching that are about to retire or retiring. And your need for mentors is pretty great, it sounds like.
It is. Even with the 320 that we have here in the state, there's a couple of things that happened in Minnesota that moving here 3 years ago I didn't realize. I had no idea what a snowbird was until I moved here. And we lose about 1/4 of our mentors right after Christmas, typically through Easter.
Wow.
And they'll go to a warmer climate. I'm an anomaly. I go north because I've got a 4-season cabin. I think it's kind of neat. But we have a very strong need because our demand for services is on a fairly steep upward climb, and it really is more so from women, number one. And
So those are your number one clients then, women.
Women are considerably more demanding of us for support than men. It's about a 60-40 these days.
Okay.
Secondly, it's more millennials than any other generation. But thirdly, for those boomers who are moving into this last stage of their life, that is our second largest group. And typically it is a boomer who, for reasons that he or she may or may not have caused themselves, wants to do what they really wanted to do their entire life. And we help them with that.